All right. So, welcome to our workshop today. I do want to tell you guys like what I'm going to do though is I want to keep it kind of informal. Obviously, I know you guys. You guys know me. So, I have some Noah and I do have some questions here, but really I also want you guys just to feel comfortable, especially, you've graduated and you might have some questions of your own. So, feel free just to ask your own questions if there's something specific that you want to talk about, because we certainly do not need to stay on script. Okay. So let's go ahead and flip over to the next one, Mr. Skinner. And then two, I'll just start with student loan payment options. So before I do this, would you guys like, are you into student loans? Do you have student loans you'll need to talk about? Okay. Okay, so when it comes to student loan payment options, I'm gonna rehearse just a couple things that we've had in class and just a couple things to know to remember with. So with the student loan payment options, oh, you know what, Mr. Skinner?
You
I've
want the
got my
screen?
Excel sheet over here. So if I'm sharing the screen, we can't both share the screen.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and stop them.
Yeah, I just realized that. This is what we get when we're doing our first presentations. We're learning what we're doing, you know? So keep it loose and informal. Okay, so let me go ahead and share my screen. Okay, so you all would have been seeing this before, but I think it's a good reminder of some things to learn about. So on your student loans, have any of you done your exit counseling for them? Okay, so usually if you have your student loans or if you have student loans, you have to go to studentaid.gov. Okay, studentaid.gov. Actually, I'm just if you have student loans, to get them started, you need to go to studentaid.gov. You're going to need to remember what your ID is for these. You can usually reset it, but anything associated with your student loans, this is your central portal. Okay. So even if your loan servicer is Mohila or Navient, or even if they're still in the business, I don't know, whoever's doing the student loans these days, okay, to set up all of your payment plans, you actually don't set your payment plans up with the providers. Okay. So if your stuff is with ABC Bank, if your loan is with them, you don't set your payment plans up with them for student loans. You set them up at studentaid.gov. Okay. So this is where you're going to go, or this is where you might tell your clients to go if you're working with someone and they ask you these questions. This is where you're going to go to set up your initial payment plans. Okay. Now, when you set up your payment plans, you have a few different options. Your standard, your extended, you have your graduated, and then you have your income-based plans. Mr. Neiman, I know you remember how long these are. So how long is our standard payment plan?
Standard's 10,
10 years? Yep. Extended?
extended's 20.
20 to 25, depending upon the loan. And then graduated, I don't remember how long graduated is. I don't remember how long, but I'll explain what it is. And then you have your income based. How long your income based?
A long, 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 long
It
time.
could be forever. Could be forever. Okay, so just as a reminder, and these are the things that you want to tell, if you're working with clients, because clients will ask you, doesn't matter where you are in finance. You could tell people that what I do for finance is I carry this guy's wallet around and I just give him his wallet when he asks me to. If that's the extent of your finance experience, people's like, oh, you're in finance, so I'm going to ask you my student loan questions. I don't know anything about it. Okay, so it's helpful just as a refresher, even when you're giving this advice. Okay, so the way that your loans typically work when you are paying off your loans with a standard repayment plan or an extended repayment plan. These loans are amortized. Do any of you know what amortized means besides Skinner? There's a specific definition I'm looking for that didn't make it to your all's class, but it made it to his.
It's like a scheduled payment.
It's a scheduled payment. What is it scheduled to?
Well, it's the same amount each month, but it's a different combination of principal and interest.
hmm Okay. So what amortization means? So it actually comes, see that M-O-R-T? So kind of like,
Wait, isn't it about like kill something or like
yes.
not alive? I
Yeah,
do feel like you did say that at one point.
I probably told you that personally, yes. So if you amortize something, it literally means to make dead. Okay. So you're killing it. You are killing it. Well, what are you killing? You're killing the loan. Okay. So an amortization is making your loan payment. So you got your principal and your interest. And at the end of the loan period, then your loan has been made dead. It's zero. Okay. So that's what amortization is. So whenever you have a loan, if you want to pay it off, you need to have an amortized loan because that's paying off your loan. It's making the loan dead. Okay. So a standard repayment and extended repayment are amortized loans, and they will make your loans dead. Income-based payments are not amortized loans. Okay. They are just giving you a payment that they are allowing you to pay, but it's not a loan repayment. It's just a number that has been made up that they say you can pay this on your loan. Okay. And so what they do is they'll take your loan and they take your AGI. So your adjusted gross income. So remember your gross income less any retirement contributions or health insurance. They're going to see what your family size is. And then they're going to make a loan payment based upon just what your AGI is. Okay. So it doesn't even really matter how much you owe on it, basically. So in this instance, if you had a $50,000 loan at 8%, your income-based payment here would be $228.42. So if you're looking at your options and see, this is where your clients have questions, because when they're looking at their options, they're just seeing a screen that says nothing but this. Okay. So this is how they're making their decisions. Well, obviously, if the only thing you knew were these three numbers, which option do you think you're going to choose? Well, I'd rather pay this one, you know? And so that's what people do. Problem is, if the income based is not more than your interest, then like in this instance, you're paying $300 a month in interest and only paying $228 on your loan. So this is where what happens with people, it's no longer an amortization. It's actually making the loan very much alive. So whatever the inverse of an amortization is. So the loan balance gets bigger every month or every year. So in 10 years from now, instead of having an amortized loan, if all things stayed the same, then you'd just keep owing more. Okay, never pay the loans off. So when might I do an income-based repayment plan?
When you're in the cash flow stage.
Mhm. Yeah, I might look at it and say cash flow stage being that's where I got to focus is on getting my cash flow stable. So like I might look at it and be like, I really can't afford $418 a month right now, and you may not be able to. So if that were the case, what could you tell the client to do?
They could lower the down to the income base for the time being
Mhm.
until they're able to figure that out.
They could, but what would you recommend if at all possible?
You can extend,
Well,
try to extend the grace period
yeah.
if they just graduated. See if they'll give you another 6 months.
Oh, yeah, you could try that. Might get an extra forbearance or something. That's an
Yeah.
I
option.
said yeah because I thought he was saying extended, like if you were able, obviously.
The other option, or what I would tell a client in practice, is I would say, okay, if you, we have this option, okay, so you can go to it, but if you're just going to it, and let's say we're going to it for a year, whatever, while we're trying to dig our way out, that might be okay as long as you understand your balance is going up. So one thing might be just to help the client to understand the ramifications. Okay. There's never anything wrong with making a suboptimal decision as long as you're aware and accepting of the ramifications and consequences of it. Okay. So that's one thing I would do. The other thing I would say is, well, if you can't afford 420 a month, can you afford 333 a month? Okay. Because at least that way I'm not going further into debt every month. Okay. So if I could just say, well, what if we made a 335 payment? Well, I might get to the end of the year and only have paid off $20 of principal, but at least I didn't go backwards. Okay. So that would be how you can leverage an income-based repayment is by dropping it down below the just basically using it as an opportunity for a client to be an interest-only loan. Okay. Questions on that? Good refresher. Okay. Now, graduated payment plan, wherever I wrote those notes down, graduated payment plan, that one is where they will start your payment out lower. And I have no numbers to know what this is. I'm just completely making numbers up. But they might say for the first 2 years, it's $100 a month. The next 2 years, it's 150 a month. Then it's 200, and it'll go until the loan. It's not technically an amortized loan in that it's an even installment payment, but it is amortized according to the long-term schedule. Okay. But I'd say check the payment terms of time and term and all of that. Okay. So those are basic student loan payment options. Now, let's see if I can. So why don't we do this, you guys? I'm happy to talk. These are the ones that I had scheduled to discuss, whichever ones we could get to. I'm happy to let you guys pick one of them or just ask your own. Just fire away. I'd much rather answer questions that I know that you have.
I got a question. So I was looking into about purchasing first car kind of thing, like first car for me. And one thing that I saw was it should be 10% of your monthly take home. So after taxes and after your deductions, 10% should go to the auto loan and to the insurance. But I feel like that's not really feasible because that's I don't know. Like I feel like that's not for a car, something especially like for me, I drive an hour to work every day. So I'm driving like 85 to 90 miles a day. And then I'm in New Jersey, so car insurance. I'm also a 24-year-old male, so that is not helping my case.
Yeah. Go get married, then it'll go down. That's my advice to you. No, 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 no. Okay. You want me to answer that one now, or do you have more to say on that one?
No, that's pretty much it. I mean, for me right now, I moved back in with my parents to save money and not have to pay rent. So like that's would be and like the highest proportion of whatever my salary would go to. But I'm trying to like keep that away. So I don't want to buy a car and then let's say next year I move out and then now
Can't.
we're really stretching the budget because we didn't pay rent and everything was fine paying for the car and everything. But now and like rent over here is like
Mhm.
$2,500 a month, which is a little ridiculous, but
So that would be what I would tell you to base your decision on. Okay, so first off, a couple of years ago, I had a student that he moved to wherever he was moving to. He got his job. He actually got a nice consulting job, was making decent money, but the price of rent where he was just a fortune. It wasn't, and like he was showing me, he's like, I mean, I've looked. He said, it's just a fortune to live. He was doing his 370 project, and he was actually taking it kind of seriously because he was working on that stuff anyway. And he's like, what do I do? He's like, it's just so much. And he's like, I can swing it, but it's a big percentage, and people say basically the same thing you do. They said to stay at a certain percentage for housing. And he's like, I just can't. And it was like, well, look, when you don't have options, you don't have options. What the rule of thumb, if you will, is not a percentage. It's always your ability to manage the obligation that you have. And as long as you're able to manage it in your budget, see, maybe they say 10%, and maybe that's just kind of a general guideline, and maybe that is practical in a manner of speaking. However, maybe average people are paying 10%. Maybe some of them are paying, they go by however much they do in their hobby that you don't spend. So it's like they may spend more in another area and less in others. And it's the same thing for you. You might be a little more car heavy because you have to, but as long as you cut back in other areas and you're able to stay cash flow positive, that's the goal. Okay. So don't let those kind of rules of thumb clutter your thinking because the goal is not the percentage. The goal is always cash flow stable, which kind of brings you to your next question about I don't want to go upset the apple cart, with those kinds of unknowns, which is very wise. Okay, that's giving some real forethought to at least your expenditures. So in that kind of an instance, my recommendation would be to go back to like the idea of that 370 project. Just say if this is my net income, if I'm putting this much into rent and this much into utilities and this much into my base lifestyle expenses, what's left? And then from there you begin to indicate you can clarify your budget. And if you'd like me to go through that with you sometime, feel free to send me a message. I'll be happy to rehearse it with you. But does that
All
answer
right,
your
thank
question
you.
on that?
Yeah. I mean, we've been out of class for a little while, so it's not every day that we're thinking about budgeting, or at least for me, it's not,
Sure.
especially with moving back, having no expenses, and now we're getting a real paycheck. It's
Yeah.
You always want to go kind of deplete it as quick as possible, but gotta look towards the future. But I just that 10% number when I saw that when I looked it up, I just thought that was kind of ridiculously low, especially for a car.
Just to speak to what you just said there. So one of your other classmates, Christian Gumas, I do some work with him, and so we tend to meet a few times a month, and he does his budget, and he's got his job like you, and he was telling me the exact same thing, and he's in his budget every day. He's like he's like it's it's so much already. When you start taking over all your own expenses, it's a lot to manage and it's a lot to keep it all. So even if you are in it every day, it's just hard to learn at first, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. It's so much easier in the classroom when you give us everything all laid out, and then now it's now it really is the going to get that Chipotle meal or whatnot.
Mhm. Well, just remember it's an open offer. If you want to say, hey, can you walk me through this to help make that decision? We can do some quick math and look at that.
All right, thank you. Yeah,
And
I'm trying to get the whole down payment settled right now. That's what we're working towards.
you just give me a call if you need something.
All right, thank you.
Okay. What's next? What's another question? Your own or off of here?
So similar to Connor, I'm saving for something too. In the next 2 to 3 years, my girlfriend and I are looking to stop being renters and buy a house. Recently opened a CD through my bank was offering a special 10-month paying a little over 4%.
Hmm.
But I have some more money that I would like to invest for the purpose of a down payment in 2 to 3 years. What kind of investments should I be looking towards for funds with that time horizon, do you think?
Mr. Skinner, you're my resident investment guy. What would you say here?
Um, it sounds like you're trying to preserve your money rather than really grow it. So I think a CD is great for that.
Okay.
Um, a high yield savings also gives you a little more like liquidity. If you have an
Mhm.
emergency and all your money's in CDs, then you're kind of SOL there.
I was just seeing if you were going to recommend like an investment, like like what kind of mutual fund or something you might recommend since you're the one that's in that all the time. I was kind of
uh,
curious if you had any ideas on that one.
yeah, I think a great way is just be the market. So like put money into the S&P if you're not already. And then just make that consistent. So however much you're putting in, put that in every month. Um, and I mean the market goes up, even when it goes down, it'll come back up.
Yep.
So yeah, I think that's good investment. Some fixed income was probably good as well if you're trying to preserve that money and, not be so at will of the market.
Right.
I'll jump in on that one. So I don't know that I know what to tell you on that one for me personally. I would say if I was going to do it, I would just be looking at probably if I was going to put money in the market on it, I'd probably just look at like a bond fund, a very conservative one. I wouldn't be trying to. And I'll tell you just where for me, okay, let me tell you what my reasoning is or why I have some as just a personal hesitancy. It's more just because at your all stage in the game, it's less about developing a return and it more is being able to have the preservation of your principal. Okay.
Right.
More that you can just save and you know your money is there, especially in a 2 to 3 years. In a 2 to 3 years, it's still such a short-term time horizon. But in the next 2 to 3 years, there's going to be political changes, whatever happens, when the next, the primaries and all the things that begin to happen, the midterms and all those, you
Hmm.
can dramatically see market fluctuations there. And you may say, I've got a 2 to 3 year time horizon, but sometimes the right house just happens, you know?
Right.
And it's like if it just happens and then, oh, it was midterms and now, you lost. Okay, there goes some of your down payment. So for me, it's like I would pick something that I know would be conservative but I don't really know beyond that because that's not really the place that I play in. It's not the space that I play in, my sandbox,
Hmm.
if you will. But I just definitely err more on the side of the savings because of that.
Right. Okay.
My thoughts. I was actually just telling Noah here of a client that I'm working with. We are in the process of setting the client's business up, and she's just starting into business, so we're just setting up all the stuff for it. And the client has some real trepidation and anxiousness about income. She makes a healthy income. What she's going to be doing, she's going to be making a healthy income right out of the gate. She's not worried about not making an income. She's worried about the up and down nature of the income. Okay. So it's like she knows she's going to have some good months, but she doesn't know that that's going to necessarily be every month. But so the conversation that we had was like I showed her how much money she has in savings. Okay. So keep in mind that this is a high income earner, multiple $100,000 a year, very financially stable. Well, we could have put this money in the market. We could have done this. Yes, we could have. But and so why would you put so much money in savings for her? because these are the types of things, these are the types of decisions that people make when they feel stable and confident in them. The more cash that you guys have behind you and you quit worrying about returns so much. And I know you're not worrying about returns, but we're making educated decisions. That probably wasn't the best word to say, worrying about it, but focusing on returns as much. The more that you can put money in savings and have it, the more you have opportunities available to you that other people won't have simply by virtue of the money. Okay. Because it's like she has this opportunity. If she didn't have so much money in savings, she would not have been comfortable to take this step that she's taking, which I do believe long term is going to be I believe personally, in looking at it short term, I think she's going to be better off. But we don't know that short term she's going to be better off. Okay. So that extra money in savings, not earning the returns of the market, well, yes, but now she's able to start a business, and the return on that will be far more than anything she would have had by having that extra money in the market. Does that make sense? Okay, so that's where I just give you guys and try to feed that into you. You will work for people for a while. You will get to a place where you may question whether you want to continue working for somebody because of the burden and the administrative of being an employee. And so it doesn't mean that you're always going to start your own business, but you may just freelance a little more. Maybe I'll work for this guy part-time and that employer for part-time, or maybe I'll do this or that. But having that ability to take that step back and that money in savings, that's not something you're going to regret.
Could you talk a little more about, how we find that good line of how much am I investing and how much am I saving?
Yes, that's a good question. Okay. So another thing, another little quote that you may have heard is something to the effect, I'm just going to paraphrase it, but something to the effect of where your focus goes is what grows. Okay. And there's a lot of truth to that. When you focus on something, it has an ability to grow. Okay. A lot more than if you don't focus on it. So you want to know in your finances, this is where we call them focus areas, because there are areas on which you want to focus at different times of your life or different types of problems. So the first area, we always focus on getting our cash flow strong and stable. And then we begin to focus on managing our risks. Okay. Once we have our risks managed, including all of our insurance products and money in savings, 3 months in an emergency fund, then we begin really focusing on investments, okay, and wealth accumulation. We put that focus on the wealth accumulation after the risk management, as it is what helps our investments to be able to grow is that consistency of constantly contributing, which is what Mr. Skinner just said a minute ago. When you are constantly contributing to your investment portfolio through the ups and the downs, that's what makes your investments work over time. That's what gives you your power, is that consistency of action. So anything that starts and stops your investments is not healthy for your long-term investment growth. Okay. So if you have your risks managed, then you don't have the concerns of things inhibiting that cash flow. You don't have to worry about big car accidents, medical bills, disabilities, things like that. There's things that negatively impact your long-term wealth accumulation. So to the question of what is that dividing line between investing and saving, well, you don't really need to worry about too much. It's kind of like it's a little more of your choice in what you want to do with your money. See, personal finance is very personal. You still get to make decisions on it. And in the same way that some people are going to spend more on their hobby than another person will, like I enjoy playing the piano. I don't have a whole big amount of money that I have to invest in playing the piano. You got a piano, you sit down and you play it. So if I said, how much money do I have on my hobby? Well, I'm going to have much less than the person that says, well, my hobby is, pick your poison that costs money. I want to go skiing. I want to go a private pilot, whatever. You can have very costly hobbies. So it's all a question of how you allocate your own priorities in your own decisions. So in answer to that question of how you allocate it, well, I always recommend your focus go to your cash flow first. Once your cash flow is built up, then your risk management. And your risk management, when you're managing your risks, one of those first ones that I want to, or that to recommend to save against is your cash flow fund. Because remember, your cash flow is your most important thing. So your cash flow fund starting out, you want to set that goal at 3 months of your outflows or 3 months of your expenses or outflows. It just depends on what your income is or the way it breaks down. But you want to have basically 3 months of your income or expenses saved up. See, if you have 3 months, then you're not insulated from every world problem. But if you can go 3 months without having your job, I mean, that's a degree of confidence that you can have in your financial life. Okay. So short of that, if you focus to build up that savings, short of that, put the rest of your money wherever you please. You know, treat it like a hobby. If you're investing as a hobby, like I know it is with you, well, whatever else money you want to put in, it's what money you want to put into it. But I don't think it's necessarily here's the dividing line. I think the dividing line is if you don't have money in savings, focus on money in savings. Okay, focus on building that money up. And then if you're putting enough there that's a meaningful monthly contribution to your savings, whatever that number is, if you've got $100 a month that's discretionary and you say, I'm going to put $80 of that every month into it. Okay, if that's a meaningful money to you and that is emphasizing focus to you, whatever you want to do with that other 20%, you do that to you. It's your money. If you want to invest it, invest it. If you want to throw it in the riskiest stocks you can find, do it. It's your money. It's your choice. So that allocation is also your choice. Is that a long non-answer to your question that answers it? Those are the best kinds of questions to answer, the ones where the long answer leaves you with, that's not an answer, but it is an answer. What other questions or follow-ups? Is there one on this list? Maybe this one's a good follow-up to that one.
I guess I could come up with one. So about that pay off debt or save
Mhm.
question, this one kind of, I guess, yeah, it kind of relates to me. So I do have like a credit card debt, but I rolled it into a 0% APR. So as far as the pay it off or save, do you think the best way to go about it is to pay it all off? Because there's no APR on it. So like for the next year, I could pay it off in like $100 a month, or I could pay it like all at once. So what do you think the best way to do it would be? Would to just completely eliminate it, even though there is no um APR on it? I feel like that's something that we kind of went over in class in a way, but not to the extent of the situation.
Yeah, let me get some clarifying information to make sure I'm understanding. So you have a debt that now is 0% because you rolled it. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, if you just make it's a 12-month 0%.
Yeah. So like would would it be smarter to like I feel like there's no difference between like let's say you throw 500
Yeah.
at it a month for 6 months versus throw 3,000 at it right now. Like
Yeah. Can you in your normal cash flow, can you pay it off in 12 months and still be okay?
I can yeah, like I can pay it off within a month, but should
Okay.
I or should I
No,
kind of
I
like
would.
let it
I
rock?
would. I would not. And I'll tell you why. So I wouldn't if you don't need to. I mean, I'll just say, okay, so there's different ways to look at it. Some people just don't want any debt, and if that's you and you just don't want it, then just get rid of it. Again, it's your choice. If you've got the money and you want to throw the extra on it just because you don't like it, then that's fine too. There's nothing wrong with that decision. Now, mathematically speaking, or if you want to think about it in a different way, just the different way to think about it is, yeah, pay it off over longer. Because what's the goal when you're younger? What's your focus? Okay. Focus is save, save, save. So if I've got less money going to that and putting more money, I'm putting more money in savings, then yeah, because I can even earn interest on my savings and my credit card's costing me nothing. So I would say, yeah, taking the smaller payment over the 12 months, that would be what I would do. I wouldn't see any reason to pay it off unless you do one thing. So what's the alternative? So if you take the smaller payment and put the difference in savings, that's a good thing. What would be the not good thing?
At all.
Nope. You take the smaller payment and you just go spend the rest on ice cream.
Uh,
Of
yeah.
course, actually in the area of 0%, it really wouldn't matter. So
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
I didn't see a difference between because like after however long, it's still gonna be the debt will be gone, and then my savings will technically be the same, but so have the savings first then.
yes. Now, and to your point, mathematically or on the interest side of it, yeah, there's no difference between paying it off in 3 months or 12 months. Now, I will show you all the flip side, not necessarily to answer this question, but if you do one of those APR rollovers again in the future, something or with a client, here's something you want to be aware of. And I'm going to see if I can pull this up here too. I have a I have a client that we're in this situation, so I'm hoping I can show you the screenshot of what this is. Yes, good. Okay. Okay, so you can all see the screen. Okay. So this is a 0%, and this is how some of them work. Okay. This is not all of them. This is some of them. So you always have to check on which one you have. So this client, she purchased something on April 23rd. It was $640. It's at 0%. Okay. So this column right here says deferred interest charges. And then you've got your expiration date of the 0%. Okay. So what this means when it says here, like, and this is would be on her statement, but this is just the online statement. But what this deferred interest charge means is if she does not pay all of this balance off by the expiration date, she is still responsible for all of the interest. Okay. So they still calculate interest on this 0% loan. And you just don't get charged it if you pay by this date. But if you don't pay, so on May 13th, if she hadn't paid that, all of that deferred interest charge would get tacked on to her loan. Okay. So you just want to make sure that if you ever do that, or if you're ever working with a client on it, you make sure you pay attention to when those promotional periods end and you structure your payments to end before the promotional period ends. Okay. So that's just something interesting on the flip side of those. Cool. 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 Other questions? Okay. All right. Well, what I'll do is I will do, I'm going to pick, should I invest in my employer's retirement plan? And I'll give you a couple things on the employee benefits to know too. Okay. So employer's retirement plan, should you invest in it? I think this one for me is always going to come back down to the basics. How is your cash flow? Okay. And your cash flow, you want to think about that. If I'm thinking about if I'm thinking about my long-term investments like retirement planning, my cash flow has to consider all of my normal routine expenses. Okay. It also has to consider my insurance products. Okay. I would not recommend choosing your retirement plan over disability insurance, for instance. That just doesn't make practical financial planning sense. So I would invest into it if those things are able to be taken care of too. Then the answer would be yes, I would go for it. But I just wouldn't prioritize it. Okay. So again, always understand that financial decisions are completely preferential in a lot of ways. Okay. I may say I would not prioritize it. That does not mean it wouldn't be a priority to you, or it might be something that you value more strongly. And if you want to do it, do it. Okay. Because some people are like, I just want to do it, and I don't want you to say, well, Professor DeGroff talked me out of it. No, I'm not talking you out of it, but it's going back to that area of focus. The financial planning, the logical decision goes to where you can focus your attentions and your monies. If you can focus the majority of your allocation in this time on your risk management and developing your savings and developing your insurance products, then that's what you want to do. If you want to just choose to prioritize some of your money to go to your retirement plans, then by all means, go do it. That's even better for you. If you can prioritize your hobby money, if you will, to go to your long-term investments, good on you. Good on you. Okay. But prioritize your focused savings and financial viability money on building the savings and your insurance products. Does that make sense, or questions on that? Okay. What employee benefits should I consider? This one, I'll just give you some caution on it. When you're looking at your employee benefits, and I'm not talking about like health insurance. Health insurance, there's generally a couple options. You need health insurance, but you might be on your parents still at this point anyway. So your other employee benefits tend to be your cafeteria plans, which are things like vision insurance, dental insurance, forget what else is in there. Sometimes there's cancer insurance. Okay, so accident insurance, that's what I'm thinking of. So a couple things on those, if you're looking at them or if you're thinking about them, they're generally pretty inexpensive. And it's not really a what should I purchase as much as those decisions are what would I like to purchase. Okay. Because for instance, if you don't have glasses, why pay for vision insurance? But on the other hand, you may look at it and they may offer you something like cancer insurance. Now, one person, your peer may look at it and say, that's stupid. I'm not buying cancer insurance. And then another peer may look at it and say, yeah, but my dad just died of cancer and I want to make sure if something happens, I've got some extra money. Okay. So these again go back to, there's not a right or wrong of what you should or shouldn't do. It just goes back to what Mr. Gaffney and I were talking a little bit about with the payment. You just have to make sure you manage whatever you do, So there's not a right or wrong. It's not what should you consider, what shouldn't you. It's just what makes sense for you that makes you feel more comfortable and stable. And then if you can afford it and if you can manage it, then go for it. Make sense? My caution would just be in some of them that they can offer. Like there are some that if you get into some larger organizations, they'll offer you everything from like legal insurance for wills and, stuff like that. And it's just be careful in the things that you sign up for. Sometimes it feels good and it's almost like, well, it's so cheap, but literally you'll never use it. And none of your friends that ever sign up for it have ever used it, and you're going to hear one guy on a brochure that did. So if you choose something, just make sure you use it. And if not, just don't add it. Paycheck bloat is a real thing. People forget things that their employers offer because sometimes employers will offer things throughout sporadic times of year. You can sign up for this and it's paycheck deduction. Might be something that's offered, something that's going on, whatever it is. And you think about it and you're like, oh, that's a great idea. I'm going to do that. 5 years later, that thing's still on there and you forgot all about it a year after you signed up for it. So paycheck bloat happens. So you always want to check on your paychecks and the benefits that you purchase and what you acquire. Okay. Any questions on those? Okay. So we covered that one. We covered that one. We covered that one. Covered that one. We didn't really talk about rent or buy. We can here in a second. This one, how do you manage your all's new expenses? Mr. Gaffney, how do you manage that? Because I know you're doing it every day.
Um, Really, my only new expenses, really, like the big ones, are my clothes for work because I'm in a suit every day.
Oh, are you?
Um, so buying
Thanks.
up suits is kind of hurting me. But
Well, I was speaking more facetiously because
ah,
I knew what you were saying when you were saying you need to budget every day. How do you manage them? The answer here is no matter whether you have a lot or little, this is where you do want to stay in the budget. It's just such a valuable habit that if you develop that habit, it will stick with you and it will pay you dividends far beyond the rates of returns of GameStop during short sales. Your budget will drive so much for you. Okay. So if you need assistance or if you need to talk about it or have questions, feel free to reach out on those ones. And it is a lot, especially when you move out and you start having a lot of those responsibilities. Or if you start managing joint expenses too. Oh my goodness. When you start having joint ones, you want to make sure you're on the same page. So having it written down so people can see it makes it a lot easier than having it in your head. So the budget, budget, budget. How fast should I pay off my student loans? Those are the least important ones in my estimation. That's my value system. From a financial planning value, from a financial planning standpoint, okay, of just looking at this of what is prioritized financially speaking, I would not prioritize student loans. They generally will have more flexible options because they're student loans, and there's a lot of political influence that student loans have. So they generally have a little easier terms. So if there's ever something that if I ever was in an issue, I could use my student loans as leverage of an opportunity to save money if I needed to. I can put them on forbearance. I can lower the payment. There's options that I could do that I can't necessarily do with my car payment. I can't really call up my car payment provider and say, hey, can I have the next 3 or 4 months off of a payment? Sometimes they may offer that. Okay. Or they may allow it depending on situations, but certainly couldn't say I'm going to have a 12-month forbearance, which sometimes you can do with student loans, depending on the situations. Okay, so they give you a little option. So financially speaking, those ones are not the priorities. However, preferential, you may want to pay them off faster. So it's up to you. But I just wouldn't put them on a long payment term. I'd put them on just as long as I felt comfortable. If I'm like, I want a 10-year loan, just because I want them gone in 10 years, do it. But if you're going to discipline yourself to put more money in savings or something, don't feel bad about a longer term payment, is what I'm trying to say. Okay. I mean, if you can pay them off shorter term and it doesn't strap you and you're fine, then do it. But don't feel guilty if, for a longer payment term.
But just thinking about like student loans, and hopefully I never have to know this, but how exactly do I put a loan in forbearance?
Call them up. You just call up the provider and you tell them, hey, I'm going into, I've got a financial hardship and I was seeing if there's something I can do to put my loans on forbearance. And they will ask you a couple questions, oh, did you lose your job or was there a injury? Or, they'll ask you a few clarifying questions. You tell them, or usually maybe send you a document, sign you a paper, or you may have to sign a paper, or they may not even, or e-sign something, But after that, it's generally pretty easy. And they will too, they'll help you with the forbearance based upon sometimes expectation. So it's like if you lost your job, they may say, well, is 3 months enough? Okay. And you may say, I mean, I hope so. I don't want this to go on forever. And so then what they'll do is they'll say, well, tell you what, we're going to go ahead and put this on 3 months today. And then if something happens, you just give us a call back in 3 more months and we'll see what options are available. Okay. So the so that's how those will generally work. Now they will limit that. They're not going to let that go on indefinitely, but they'll work with you for a while on those. But that's really all you generally got to do is just call them. Follow-ups on that? Okay.
Not on the student loans aspect, but for the budgeting. I know
Mhm.
in class we use the website YNAB, but is that still what you recommend, or have you found a new program?
Found one that is, in my estimation, is fairly an equivalent to YNAB and it's free. It's called Actual Budget. The only thing is I don't know for sure if it has a cloud-based ability. I don't know if you can log into. I think you just have to download it. Because I have it on mine, and what I had was I just had a downloaded file, and it just saved to my computer. So I mean, I couldn't go to another computer and access it. But I don't know if that's just because when I downloaded it earlier this summer, I didn't sign up for it. Maybe it cost $3 or something a month to do it that way. I don't remember, but the budget itself was free. It just didn't come with a cloud-based subscription. Um, so I have toyed with that. I wouldn't mind toying more with it, really. I'd kind of like to. My only inhibition to not doing it is I'm just so accustomed to YNAB, and I've got such limited time that it's easier for me to stick with what I'm comfortable with than it is for me to switch right now. I've got
I
high
was just
school.
gonna say, when me and Avery made that like presentation about budgeting, I'm pretty sure you're right about that, that it's like essentially a file you download. I
Yes,
remember seeing that is basically what it is.
yes, 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 yes.
And if you can still log into your mix, I do have a link for 4 free years of YNAB. Now, after that, you're kind of locked into paying for it. But
Well, dude,
um,
I wish I had that link.
I
yeah,
know.
I'm already paying for it.
Well, they did that. They did that this year, I guess. I guess they reached out to YNAB and told them, and so YNAB gave them the 4 year stuff. So I don't know if Gaffney will be able to do it with his mix, given that he already had a 1 year. But I'd say give it a whirl and try. Ain't hurt to try it. But
Yeah, I still
even
have access to my mix right now. I got for the Pitt game, the Pitt football game, I got like an email to sign up for tickets and I did it. And they said you're not authorized. Tried to
that's
sneak in.
I'm still a student. Um, so yeah, you could try the actual budget, and even YNAB. I think it's only like 110 or something a month, or I mean a year. So I mean, it's not like it's a fortune either way.
It is like 16 a month, so that's about right.
16 a month. Okay.
Yeah, that would be about right.
192 something.
I think if you pay for the whole year up front, it's cheaper.
Yeah. And again, if you need help, let us know. I got three of the peer coaches at WVU that are here, so, or not here, but in our network, work for us. Okay. Rent or buy. What do you guys think the answer to rent or buy is?
It depends.
What do you think it depends on?
If you have the savings necessary for a down payment or for a new roof when things go wrong, or if your time horizons, if you're staying in a place for a short period of time, you're not going to go buy a house. You're going to obviously rent. If you plan to be there for the rest of your life, then you would look at into buying.
All of the above. I think I'd add another
Or if
real.
it's a cheaper place and you have a roommate.
Mhm. Yeah. So, yeah, we actually looked at that opportunity. We found so sometimes it's also, so there's all the financial reasons. Those are all excellent reasons, from a financial standpoint too. But then, sometimes you luck into something, an opportunity, and that's like, well, I was going to rent, but I kind of, happened into this opportunity, like one Cork and I were talking about was there was a property that came up that was pretty inexpensive. And it was like, we were talking about renting. And then it was like, well, look at what your payment would be on this one. It's not like it's a nice house, but it would be your house, and it was,
It certainly wasn't bad either. Like when you say not nice, like I mean it wasn't bad by any
well, I
means.
mean,
But the
I didn't see it, so I don't know.
yeah. No, it wasn't bad. It was just the time frame did not work out for me. Uh I'd basically have to cover like 6 months of rent while also covering that, and it just wouldn't happen. But yeah, if the time frame was different, I very well might have done it.
Yeah, I mean, imagine if that would have been like a month before your lease ran out or something,
Right.
you know? So
Yeah, no,
some,
that would have been great. Yeah, honestly, we just looked at it and like realistically, like I could have charged somebody like $700 in rent or whatever it was, and it would have basically covered the mortgage payment, and then I would only be responsible for if something, repair wise was to go wrong. And it was pretty cool to see that actually. That like you can do that early. So didn't
yeah,
work out, but it was still worth,
well,
talking about it and everything. So
and you think about how cool that would be that he bought a house, you know, bought a house, had a roommate or a housemate, really, not a roommate at that point, housemate, charged enough and easily, justifiably, fairly charged enough to cover the mortgage payment. So it's like he's building equity and somebody else is paying for it. Okay. I've known people who've done stuff like that. Sometimes you just land the opportunity. Okay. And that's a lot of what happens in finance. It's a lot of what happens in your all's careers. It's a lot of how you actually start to find yourself and find what you enjoy and don't enjoy. It's just stuff like that happens. It's like you kind of like there's an opportunity and you kind of have that moment and you're like, I think I could do this. And that choice that you make in that moment, that's who you are. Are you the one that's going to say, I think I could do this and I think this would be kind of cool and I'm going to give it a try? And you just jump on it, and then it works out. And it's like, man, what a wind in your sails if you owned your own home at somebody else's dime and you're building the equity in it over time, 3 years you live in that place, just normal appreciation. It might be worth 20 or $30,000 more. It's like you just grew your portfolio 20 or $30,000 without any outlay, you know? So sometimes opportunities fall your way. And if they do, seize them. Carpe diem, seize the day. The other thing I would also tell you though, in your decision of renting or buying, is it also goes, it goes to your level of some of it, you want to think about your maturity and commitment in it too. You know, if something goes wrong and it's your house, it's on you. You know, if you're renting, it's on somebody else's dime. Okay. So like you got to think about that. Like, am I able to handle all of the responsibility of this right now? You know, and if you've got an older house, if you're buying your starter older house, you know, you may have some problems that you want to have some money banked with. So you just got to think about your commitment on it too. Like, am I ready to commit to this decision? So that would be something I would think about when it too. Just you think about those responsibilities. Are you able to commit to it? Do you want to commit to it? Are you mentally, emotionally, whatever there where I'm ready to commit to this? And or commit to the area, I should say, even commit to the area. You know, if you're kind of like halvesies on the area, I'm not really sure I want to be here, and I'm not sure that this job is really here. You know, if you're not mentally, emotionally there to commit, then don't. Definitely rent in those areas. Okay. But then all the financial reasons are all it depends. So many reasons it would depend upon. But when you can begin building equity, if you can, that's a great thing. Okay. So if you can, I think I'll just leave it on this note. When you are ready to buy, your buying is going to give you the most opportunity long term. Okay, think about if you had $10,000 to invest and you got 5% on it this year. You know, you're going to make 500 bucks in interest. That's great. Okay. But on the flip side, if I have an asset that's worth $150,000 that's growing at 5%, you know, that just grew $7,500 this year. Okay. So, I mean, it's going to, like, because the asset itself is worth more, the same percentage of growth means you're getting that much more growth every year. So, like, when you have a house, that's what you're looking at. You're looking at having a large asset that's appreciating. And so not only are you hopefully amortizing and making dead the loan, okay, but as that loan balance is going out, your equity is also increasing. And 3, 4, 5 years later, you know, that $150,000 house you bought is now worth $200,000, okay, or more. And, you know, let's say you've paid $10,000 a loan off. So now you got 60 grand of equity. Okay, that's a good wealth builder. It's a good way to drive wealth over the long term. Okay. So buying a house is really what your focal goal is. But you just want to make sure that first off, am I there to buy? And then once you're there to buy, then good on you. That's just a decision that can really balance you and stabilize you and give you some real equity over the years. Okay. So I think we pretty well call it good here, unless there's something else you all want to ask. Okay. So here's what I'm going to do from here. I'm going to shut off the recording. And then if you all want to hang out for a few and talk, I'd love to do that. I think it'd be kind of cool. So I'm going to shut off the recording, but if you got to go, you got to go. But I'm going to go ahead and shut off the recording and thank you all for listening.